Hello, viewers and listeners. Welcome to another episode of Pathways to the Ivies. Today on our show, we have a very special guest, and you're going to know about her very soon. But before that, have you ever had a teenager have you ever asked a teenager what they want to do with their life and just gotten a shrug? My guest today believes that every student has hidden talents and she knows how to bring them to light. Jackie Postelnick, founder of Conscious College Planning, helps students uncover their natural strengths before they even build a college list. Her secret weapon? Aptitude testing. Today, we're going to dig in into what the aptitude test reveals, why it works, how it helps families finally getting on the same page. Jackie, welcome to the show. How do you feel? Can you go about telling our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourselves besides all the introduction I gave them?
Thanks so much, Rima. Yeah. So I work with teens and young adults to help them understand their strengths on a deeper level. When, somebody comes to me, they're like, what should I major in or what schools are going to be good for me and all of that. And there's all these very tactical questions and very valid questions. But in order to have great answers for those and to find true alignment is to understand themselves on a deeper level. So that's at the core of all the work that I do. And of course, ideally, when I want to meet a student as early as possible in their timeline to have all of the space to figure those things out, right? Because we don't figure out big questions in the snap of an instant. But no matter when someone comes to me, I like to meet them where they're at and we figure out a plan forward. So I've been doing this work for working with families and students and in higher education since 2011, starting off in financial aid and then eventually branching off into admission coaching and financial aid advising to help students from a holistic perspective and finding the best pathways for them.
Awesome. Good to know. And I think I speak with so many people, but this is the first time somebody has emphasized on aptitude testing. So, of course, more about that as we roll through the podcast. But I'm glad that, we're bringing this up, especially a lot of our viewers are late middle schoolers, early high schoolers, and this is when they need to kind of wet out what their interests are. So, good to know that. But let's start with our first question. Most families think college planning starts with a list of schools. You start somewhere completely different with aptitude testing. Why?
Yes. So, I mean, when I first found out about the Highlands aptitude assessment, I took it for myself and I was so moved at how incredibly insightful the information was. And the first big thought that I had was, wow, if I had this information as a teenager, I could have sidestepped probably a decade of trial and error. um, there's always room for pivoting and discovery and changing your mind, right? But there's some foundational pieces of who we are that are even already in existence when we are in our adolescence. And so when students can practice as young people to work that muscle of making a strong decision based on what is best for them specifically, not what looks good on paper, not what their, aunt or uncle wants them to do or mom and dad feels like they should do. Sure, those are things that we should take into consideration, right? People in our life to have opinions and things, but still to be able to flow them through our own filters of our values, our interests, our strengths, and so that we're doing things that are sustainable and that will keep us happy. So I had found out through my aptitude assessment that I'm very much built for entrepreneurship, all kinds of like performing and delivering information, teaching, counseling, all of these things. And truthfully, as a young person, I did think about going into counseling and was swayed out of it from people, good meaning people in my life. And, that I kind of in a roundabout way found my way back to it through, again, trial and error and just the flow of life. And so I couldn't help but think, wow, I really could have used this information. And, right from the start of incorporating this into my college planning advising process, I've seen it make massive influence in students. Again, like having confidence in themselves, knowing how to do, like combining research with, um, understanding, I call it the sensational clues within, right? What are those sensations that you feel when you're doing something? Is it frustrating? Is it intriguing? Like those are important clues just as much as the data and the research. So, yeah, great question.
Awesome. And I think that's a great answer because, oftentimes I deal with so many parents and they're like, hey, you know what? My kid's a math kid. So he'd possibly do engineering, right? Or my kid is a biology kid, maybe biological sciences. So a lot of people equate a subject that you are good at to the aptitude that you have. There's a huge difference between these two. I could be like, I was somebody who has, I love languages. I was actually one of the top students for languages, especially English, right? And does that mean that I would do great in some form of a career in English? I don't think so. Like these are very, very two, like having a skill and having an aptitude are two different things. So what I want you to do is my next question is actually surrounded on this. What's the difference between an aptitude, an interest, and a skill? And why does that distinction matter so much for a 16-year-old?
Okay, love this question. So go ahead and fold your arms right now. Just naturally, just fold your arms, okay? Now switch. You can do it, right? But it feels weird. It feels maybe a little off. Like your
Yeah.
hands kind of cramped up and you're like, wait a second, that doesn't feel right. The first one is an aptitude. You don't have to think about it. You just go there without any kind of really process and it feels right. The other one is kind of representative of a skill. You have to think about it. You have to put a little like effort into that to kind of make it work, right? So they're both important to have, but we want to understand what are those things that come so natural to you, that are, without thinking, what are you good at without even trying? Because that's going to give us some good clues about what kinds of careers and jobs that are associated with those aptitudes and those strengths isn't going to feel overly challenging or taxing, right? It's not that we don't want to challenge ourselves. Of course we do to some degree. And so that it's good to know the difference, right? It can help in terms of when we do an aptitude assessment, if a student is interested in a pathway where maybe they don't have a strong aptitude in it, depending on what that aptitude is, they can make up for that through skill building. So it doesn't mean that it's off limits for them, but it can help them explain the sensation within of why does this feel so hard to me compared to what I'm observing around me? Why does it seem so easy to other people? So then that's where students can get that understanding of uh, you know go making those choices based on what is right for them versus what they're just simply observing. The observations are still helpful too, but we can then have a validation of why maybe something felt a certain way. And I think it helps to disarm that and not be so harsh on ourselves, right? Um, so I had always been harsh on myself, like, why don't I understand how to read a map very well? Or I always get lost. I always choose the wrong direction when I'm so sure I'm going north, but I'm really not at all. And I'm on a trail or something. And I just don't have the aptitude for it. But am I sitting day to day and practicing and reorienting myself and, teaching myself how to read the maps? No, right? So that's why it's hard for me, right? Small little silly example, but um, now our interests are something completely different, right? Our interests kind of, orient us to the things that just capture our attention. And those things can change over time, right? Skills change with time, effort, and energy. Interests just change, with our experiences over life, if we had a good experience in something or not, right? And then aptitudes are more a little bit of how you're hardwired. So those are kind of a highlight on the differences, but how they're all important to understand and then blend together.
Awesome. And I love the answer because my next question was, do you think my aptitude evolves with time? I think you answered it. You're naturally wired for something and that's your aptitude. And your skill is something that can change over a period of time. Like, I mean, interest is something that can change over a period of time, and skill is something that you can develop over, along the way. But
Yeah.
aptitude is something that you're born with, and you're going to have a natural um you're just going to be naturally good at it. You don't have to think, like, I mean, of course you can better it, but it just feels comfortable, like the initial folding your arms. Is that a right way to summarize that, Jackie?
Yeah, I would definitely agree, and I'll just add that there are certain aptitudes, and I'm sure we'll get in it later into the interview, but there's certain aptitudes that are referred to as drivers, and they drive your internal satisfaction. And so those are ones that maybe can't always be made up for with skill building, even because they have such a strong influence in in the way that you like to solve problems and what kinds of problems do you like to solve. So it's so fascinating how we can how the assessment can really drill into those, and how much of a difference it can make in our trajectories. Even if we're set on going into medicine, there's still so much spectrum of how a student can use their strengths and their aptitudes in a way, the right way or the wrong way, I think, right? So
Good to know.
we'll
I
definitely.
suddenly feel I should get my aptitude test done today.
You honestly should. I would love to walk you through that.
It'd be very cool because in my head, I used to think aptitude test is like a psychometric test where people go through it and like you're good at this and you're not good at this. This is a very different perspective. So good to know. My third question is, what do you see happen when a student picks a major or a career path based only on grades? Or what do you think they are supposed to do? Like generally, placing aptitude versus grades. That's the question that I'm getting at here.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just shows me that they just need to do the work, first of all. Like, if you're picking something, it's kind of empty. There's no reason for it. And then how does that turn out when they're trying to explain to college admissions, let's say, why do they want to go into that major? It's a very common question on the applications, and it's, we kind of look to that as, some might refer to it as a weeder question, right? Because they're trying to see, have you thoughtfully, um, come to understand why this is a fit for you, right? That's point blank what the colleges are asking. And so if you don't have really a great understanding of that, or a good answer, right, that can impact your choices from the college admission perspective. But from a deeper perspective, like, it is, you don't have anything to base it off of, right? Or it could just simply be based off of an interest, which is fine too. Um, but I think, like, we need to go deeper than that, because sure, we can have lots of interest in things, but is it sustainable, right? Is this something where your child is going to thrive and be successful over time? It's not just about getting in, getting the foot in the door. So I can see how I've had, yeah, of course, like, parents are like, oh, go into this because this equals success. Well, it's going to be really difficult for a student to feel successful if they're working against the grain of themselves for 4+ years of a degree and then decades in a career. So it can be, the consequences of not choosing things in alignment is feeling like off or depressed, frustrated, checked out, right? And how prevalent is this in our society, right? So, like, and it's certainly not very common for students, young people, to be going through processes like this. Um, so yeah, it's really, really important to some degree. I mean, sure, even if you don't have access to an aptitude test or something like that, some thoughtful integration and introspection goes a long way.
Absolutely. Just this is just out of my curiosity and going a little tangential. Have you ever seen that? I mean, the common case is you have an aptitude for something, and then you choose a major that is not aligning with that aptitude, and perhaps there is a possibility that you may fail, or no, you may not be as successful as you had the ability of, becoming successful. But do you think when you do an aptitude test and you align your major to that aptitude, um, is there a scope of failure, or do you minimize your chance for failure? Let me rephrase in terms of what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I honestly do think that it is. It doesn't eliminate it because there's actually a pattern of aptitudes that indicate a person is somebody who learns through experiences. And so if that person doesn't have a lot of experiences to draw upon, especially as a young person, which many don't, relatively speaking, they're going to need that space and exploration in college to try out different things. So again, coming back to the earlier you can do the aptitude clues, the better, because then you can digest them over time, feed yourself some experiences, even as a young teenager, to start feeling out what makes sense for you or not. So I had a student that liked the idea, their interests were in computer science, but their aptitudes were showing that is likely going to be very difficult. And it was one of the drivers, was one of our big clue indicators. Um, and so, sure, they could do the, like the initial kind of prerequisite classes that you need to be on that pathway. They got accepted to a computer science program. But then after the first semester, immediately was no, I don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore. And was really struggling in those theoretical classes. And they're a more practical minded person. They care about more like practical problems. And then they also showed an aptitude for in between hands-on and conceptual. So going through like another round of like, okay, like let's touch base. What did you think about this experience? Why didn't you like it? Right, kind of breaking down and analyzing it, and then reorienting into a new major. So now they're going into like biohealth sciences research, and that's going to be much more aligned. It's still a strong interest, so now we have the interest covered. There's the more in alignment with the aptitudes, and they're doing much better. They already have like research now that they've gotten engaged with at their college. So some students, this particular one I'm referencing, they did the aptitude assessment a little bit later in the college or in the high school, career. So they didn't have as much time to try and figure it out before admissions, right? It happens like that sometimes. It's not the end of the world. Every student's also different. So we do have to respect, just the student's own pace on things and, like their capabilities are for digesting their experiences. So like there's so many variables. It's not just all about the aptitudes, but they are, just an example of how powerful they can be.
Absolutely. And those are great pointers, like, how aptitude tests saved a student from making the wrong choices. So it's great. I also wanted to ask that a lot of teens say, I don't know what I want to do, and parents panic. What does aptitude testing reveal that changes that conversation?
Yes. Well, instead, I think it's a almost like a loaded question to ask. What do you want to do with your life, right? And it's so broad because I do think that under the surface, most students actually do have interest, but you have to ask them in a very different way. And also sometimes they're not as trusting of their instincts, or they're not in tune with their sensational clues yet. That's why I also incorporate personality quiz into my process as well, because our personality elements can actually shed some really great light on, are we more of an intuitive person? Are we more of a sensing person? Are we thinking or feeling, right? And this even just helps how they might even approach going about like their personal discovery process. So not it can only help understand like tendencies for career choices and major choices and everything, but just how they operate in the world. So Yeah, when a student says that they don't know what they want to do, guarantee that there's little hints somewhere in there. So I call it clue mining. And so what we do is clue mining. And if they're really, really lost, like some students are very, we'll say, I call it dynamic, where, on a Myers-Briggs style personality assessment, like there's the four factors, and then you can be like, dominant towards one, and that's what makes up the 4-letter code, right, for those 16 different personality types. But there's some students that are literally almost in the middle of all of them, right? And so we will call that dynamic, right? And inherently those students always are like, I don't know, or like they just have so many ideas they can't choose one because they can literally see both sides of the coin in every aspect. So those students might need a little bit more time and patience and understanding of like that they need to have some more experiences, and also intentional reflection on those experiences to see what they liked, what they didn't like, what they mean to them, so continued coaching is very helpful, whether it's from somebody formal like me or even just a trusted, mentor, parent, older sibling, something like, but there has to be intentional reflection in those things. So yeah, I have like questionnaires just to kind of figure out a little bit who they are under the surface, because there's definitely some, I don't know. There's always a direction that we can orient, because you can still go into college undecided but still have a few ideas to choose from. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Awesome. And that's good to know. Like, the earlier the better. And even if you demonstrate an aptitude for multiple things, it's really okay. It has to be, then it boils down to personality fit. So I love the idea that it's not just aptitude testing, it's also personality fit. I can have aptitude for many things, but I'm just an introverted person, so I may not want to go out and talk to people, there could be other things that I'm better suited for. So I think I love that. But now we come to the main question, which I think a lot of viewers and listeners would be interested in. Walk us through the Highlands ability battery. What does a student actually experience? What comes out on the other side? What is the test? All the good stuff.
Sure. So if like, well, let's say you want to engage in my aptitude discovery package, right? So we would have an initial meeting, just a little meet and greet, demo how everything works, get you set up with my suite of resources that I make available, and my career exploration kit and all of the questionnaires and everything. So we meet, I set them up with what they need to do. They take the Highlands Aptitude battery, which is 19 mini work samples, kind of like little brain games that they play on the computer, anywhere between 1 and 10 minutes long. Most of them are right smack in the middle, 5 minutes. And the great thing about it is that if a student is hard pressed on time with a very busy schedule, or they have a hard time sitting down for a few hours, they can do a few work samples and then take a break and then come back to it, and then, span it out over the course of one day or several days. So it's very flexible. It's just that when they're actually taking the work sample, they need to be focused, and so that it's measuring them accurately. And so once they complete all the work samples, the little 5-minute personality quiz, and my questionnaire, then we start our debriefing sessions. I like to break it down into 2 separate sessions so that it's not overwhelming and that they have time to digest what we talked about. So if we meet on a Monday, we for the first session, then we would maybe meet on Wednesday or Friday or something for the second, or maybe Monday even the following week. So we want to have those 2 meetings kind of tight together. And in the first meeting, we're just going over what are all of these clues. We are mining all of the clues from what are our drivers, what is our personal style, what are our specialized abilities, what does this all mean? And then the second session, we start to talk about the patterns. All of these aptitudes exist within them simultaneously. So we have to see how they're actually working together, because some of them might inherently be a little opposing. And it's good to know this because it doesn't mean that anything is wrong. It just means it can explain why you might have be pulled in two separate directions, or why you might have all of the strength, all of the positives from this aptitude with none of the negatives of it, because your other aptitude is pulling and kind of pressing on the opposite direction. So we kind of talk about how all of those work together, and then we start diving into career patterns as well. So we go through, I teach them how to do career research. I have show them all of the templates that I have for research, and I set them up on a little set of like mini exercises to do so that they can go through all of their results and synthesize that information. The reports are only as good as you're willing to revisit them and really understand what they mean. So I make it very easy and set up like 5 steps in a little kit that I've created, and they go through all the little steps. Some exercises are 10 minutes long, some are 15 minutes long, and some, of course, are going to be a tad longer when you're actually doing career research. So I teach them what to do. They go off and do research for a week or a couple weeks or a few weeks, however long fits for their exact schedule. And then we come back for another coaching session to understand what were their findings. Okay, what did they like about this? What did they not like about this? Do we need to add a few more careers to the list to consider? And then from that point, based on what they liked and they didn't like, I help align them with 1 to 2 professionals that are doing the things that they think that they might want to do. And so that they can get actual career research interviews. This helps them not only continue to explore the right pathways, but it also teaches them how to network, how to ask thoughtful questions, and also building their resume, which is my favorite part, because it's a tangible piece that they can show, like, hey, I've put forth this wonderful effort to, explore myself on a deeper level and to demonstrate my interest in this career path. So even if the shyest of students have gone about doing this and have come out loving it and feeling so good that, a passionate professional wants to even give them the time of day to talk to them. And most adults that I've come across are very excited to talk to a teen who's interested in what they're doing. And so not only that, I don't leave them high and dry after this. Like, I'm actually developing a list of thoughtful questions for them, right? Because they're teenagers, they're still learning. They may not know how all of this is supposed to piece together yet. So I'm really helping to pave the way, so to show them everything step by step, so that they can either then continue to work with me if they want one-on-one guidance with this, or they can have all of the resources and the templates and the structure to continue to repeating it on their own, so that they can go out and find the professionals, or they can maybe tap into their parents' network to find people to speak with. So it just teaches them a process that they can literally use all throughout their college and even into their professional life. So I'm a very big fan of my my mini aptitude package, because it's really designed for maximum efficiency, but also, like, it's economical and a really great starter package for people to dip their toe into.
Absolutely. And my next question, I think that is something that you kind of covered, as a part of this is, you said you do like 2 or 3 debrief sessions after the testing. Why isn't the report alone? Because we were discussing, but I think you pretty much covered that, what do you do? But I also like about what you mentioned is you pair them up with a professional, right? Like, oftentimes somebody comes to me and he's like, I want to be a data scientist, but can I talk to a data scientist? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'll have to look on LinkedIn, but I don't have a network of people who are doing that. So, being able to talk to somebody who's doing it like in real time changes your perspective big time in terms of, is this what you really see yourself doing? And that's what matters. So I love that, Jackie. I love that how complete this aptitude testing is. It just doesn't stop at taking the test or sending across the report or just discussing few things here and there. It is like hand holding you step by step till you really figure out what your aptitude is, match it with your interest and skills, and then take it from that point on. Great job over there,
Yeah,
Jackie.
thank you. Yeah, definitely probably one of my favorite parts of the whole entire process, because just when you can see the light behind their eyes when they like really find out that like they're truly have a gift for certain pathways, like they just feel good, and they just it just it just is like opening up so many opportunities that will even go beyond the time that I'm right like actually meeting with them. So
Absolutely. Can you share a moment where the results genuinely surprises a student or give them permission to pursue something they had been second guessing? Like any case that you remember
yeah,
while your time?
immediately I have an example that comes to mind of somebody that I was working with for a transfer. So actually one of my favorite populations to work with, I mean, I love working with anyone who wants to do self-discovery. That's definitely my jam. But students that are in college already that have been like, oh, I maybe they went to community college and now they're still lost. That was definitely a part of my own personal story when I was younger. So that has a special place in my heart. But also students who are like at a 4-year university, they started somewhere and they're like, oh shoot, I think I need to pivot, right? um, so students who are already in college, they already have some experiences to compare and contrast, so it makes it a little easier for them, and they're also sometimes a little bit more motivated to really do the work, right? Stakes are higher there. But this one student I was working with at a community college, and they I just felt like they had talked themselves down from a pathway that they are extremely well suited for in their interests. Their aptitudes backed it up as well. And so they had convinced themselves that they were actually not going to be a great fit for going into international like relations and like diplomacy and things like that, because they were not good at learning a language. And I was like, oh, well, tell me about that. Like, why don't you think you're good at learning a language? And they're like, well, I didn't have a very good experience in high school Spanish. And, I struggled really hard in that. And I was like, well, that was only one, like they had the same teacher for both years too. So I'm like, you only have had one teacher trying to teach you one language. I'm like, because actually look at your results on your aptitude report. Like they have very strong language learning aptitudes in multiple categories. There's multiple aptitudes that are measured on that can suggest a strength in a certain area. And so that really got them thinking and actually like reignited their consideration in that pathway. So they got into literally every school that they applied to for transfer. We were able, they caught me, pretty early in their process. We had enough time for them to join clubs, join memberships to, what was it? There's like a group in Chicago, like a professional group in Chicago that even students can join for that industry to learn about like things that are going on in other parts of the world, and like economic kind of forum with, I don't know, international relations. I can't remember the name of it, but they were able to join that and, get like these meaningful experiences and attend events, and to really show like that this is a strong pathway for them, and wrote really wonderful essays about their debates in class on these subjects. And so it was just really cool to see their spirit come to life, to realize that something that they've always wanted to do, that they had kind of talked themselves out of, that actually is the right pathway. So
Awesome. That's awesome. And that's good to know. It also shows that it's never late, right? A lot of people, I mean, ideally speaking, it's great to start with an aptitude test early on, but let's assume you were in college and realize it's not something that you're good at. It's never late. You can always transfer out, get an aptitude test, and kind of rewire from that point on.
right.
So, great point there.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like with the Highlands aptitude assessment, most of the people who take it are actually adults that have reached a point where they're not happy and they need to change something, right? And it's funny because a lot of people wind up not even fully making like a complete 180 in their careers. They're just making slight adjustments that are in a more alignment. So that's kind of interesting. But then also for students to know that like they're really getting access to like a very high level professional development tool that people with their bachelor's, master's, doctorates, and law degrees take. to better themselves. So they're getting really early access to this. And then the reports are literally valid over the lifetime, right? Because your aptitudes don't change over time, that they're just, you're representing your natural strengths. So um, when the aptitude reports, like they put the percentages next to each measurement, and that's not like, if they got a 75%, that's not like 75 out of 100. It's a relative percentage of how they scored compared to everyone who's taken it since the 1980s. So it's very
Wow.
eye opening that they are, like a 15 or 16-year-old is taking this, and it's like they scored high in an aptitude that it's like these are people who have decades of experience on you, but they might be scoring lower, right? So just putting that in perspective, I think really helps them sink into the
Absolutely.
to the power of it of it all.
Absolutely. I love that. So good to know that even adults can take it. It doesn't have to be, school students or even college folks. Could be, you could be 40 and realize I don't want to do this with my life and just
Parents want
switch.
to take
I
the
mean,
aptitude assessment all the time, so I'm like, I should just make a family package at this point.
I think we should. I mean, a lot of people will benefit because just hearing you, I feel I should do it. Not that I'm unhappy with my life, but I mean, it's great what I'm doing, but just to know if there are things that I'm better attuned to, I would like to know that better than just like if there are things that I'm doing better, I'm
Yeah.
better at as compared to what I'm doing. Just tweaking that and kind of putting the other responsibilities to people who are good at would be great to know.
Right. Well, sometimes also too, it's just really nice validation that of the things that you do naturally gravitate towards, you're like, oh, like this is the reason why. And that's always cool too. Or sometimes it gives you an idea of how to just like take what you're already doing to a higher level, and it gives you inspiration for that. So I mean, if you want to take it, I can get I can make that happen for you. So just let me know.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm glad to know. I mean, I'm just very, very inclined. So yes, for sure, off the chat. But I have last two questions because I want to kind of wrap this up at 40, 42 minutes. But yeah, how does this change the dynamic at home? What do parents tell you after their students go through it? Like once they're done with it and you tell them all of these and you have these sessions with them, what are some of the things that you've heard from parents?
Yeah, well, honestly, a lot of parents, students will have their parents sit in on the sessions with them. Like, there's some that don't. Of course, if they're a little older and they just think that they would be it will be more well received without the parents there or something like that. If a student, likes to be a little bit more independent or something. But a lot of students are like, no, mom, dad, like, come and sit in on this, and it's like, I think it's very helpful because it can shed light on students' tendencies. It helps the families even reflect on their own tendencies with each other because we're also still going through the personality quiz together and seeing all of like their strengths and associated challenges. Because as humans, right, there's always, if you have a strength in something, there's an equal and opposite to that, right? So it's a dynamic. We have to acknowledge all of the pieces of it. So I think it's actually really cool from a family perspective that they can understand each other better on a deeper level and have just like a more, again, like that validation, understanding of like why they might be quick to jump to conclusions on things. Because that's actually part of a challenge of one of the higher aptitudes in one of the measurements. And it's just because their brains literally go so fast that it causes them to do this subconsciously. But then again, when you bring an awareness to it, now even the person who's experiencing that can then learn to catch themselves and channel that aptitude in a more constructive way and have it to, harness all of the benefits of it and then mitigate any of the spicy points that come with it. Um, so I do think that it's very beneficial for all. And then it can also help shed light of like if a parent was maybe pressing towards a certain like career path that maybe the student wasn't that excited about, like it opens up just more conversations and understanding.
Good to know. Absolutely great to know. If you had a parent, and this is the last question before we close, who is listening, like a parent of has a sophomore or maybe freshman or whenever, or a junior who is feeling totally undecided, and is listening to this podcast, what's the one thing you'd want them to take away from this conversation, Jackie?
That there's more than one great pathway for you. So that there's not this just one coveted secret like best pathway for you. As humans, we always like to hear the best, right? Like what is that best one thing? But there's just not. There's multiple avenues where a student can be happy, and so that's honestly how I start all of my sessions, is just with that reminder. And I think it's important for everyone to know that, there's multiple options, and that, just to tap into making those decisions based on your own personal rubric of, is this, instead of asking, is this a good major? Is this a good major for me? Instead of asking if this is a good career path, is this a good career path for me? And that alone will really change how they're looking at things and assessing how to move forward in their future and their goals.
Absolutely. And would you be open to disclosing what are your packages for aptitude testing look like? This is only because, we're going to leave your website and everything else in the description box. If there's somebody who wants to do it immediately, they if they find this as a good price point. So if you could just elaborate that if you
Yeah.
have this open.
Yeah, so my advanced aptitude discovery package is $7.95 for everything, like the resource kit, the taking the assessment, the lifetime reports, the personality quiz, the report for that, advanced report for that as well. So there's like all of those wonderful tangible hands-on resources, and then our coaching sessions and experiences of getting connected with a professional, and having kits and structure and templates to be able to recreate this process for themselves on their own. I do have a promotion on my website. So if they went to consciouscollegeplanning.com and clicked on the aptitude subpage, there is a box that pops up and it will ask for their email, and they put their email in, and it will send them like a promotion link where they can purchase this package at a discount. So
Awesome. And how soon can a parent, like, what is the earliest a parent should get their kid, their child aptitude tested? Like, is there, a certain age limit or a grade limit that you recommend so that, the viewers and listeners on this podcast can be more vigilant and reach out to you at that particular time rather than, later?
yeah, so the earliest that somebody can take the aptitude assessment is 14, 15. There's a little bit of a range in there because, of course, everyone develops a little bit differently. But per their Highlands aptitude research, they found that that's when aptitudes are solidifying, is around the age 14, 15. And you can kind of tell the difference between a 14 or 15-year-old, like maybe gauge that by their maturity level. So that's kind of a little bit of a parental judgment call, but that would be the earliest that they could engage in this process.
Awesome. Any last words, Jackie, that you would like the parents, the students, all the viewers and listeners before we sign off from the podcast today?
Just that everything's going to work out. Your kid's going to have amazing opportunities, and just see me as early as possible.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Jackie, for your time. I think this is one of the most enlightening podcasts that I've done. Seldom do I go on podcasts. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this, right? Not that I'm claiming I know everything, but it's usually a lot of things that I have researched. And this is the first time we're talking about aptitude testing. So great speaking with you. Parents, students, if you're watching this episode, please reach out to Jackie. She has this amazing aptitude testing plan. And once you go through it, not only will you be able to shortlist your majors, but also align yourself to something that you have a natural aptitude towards and which exponentially improves your chances of being successful. So we're going to leave the link of her website, her booking link, her email ID, and anything else that's necessary in the description box below as we upload this website, as we upload this podcast. And this is your host, Rima Jatalia, signing off with yet another episode of Pathways to the Ivies. We will come up next Sunday once again with another episode with another person who will help high school students in this mumbo jumbo of college planning process. This is Rima signing off. Thank you so much. Have a good one.